Welcome back. Now, Professor Andre Duvenhage says that the recent outcomes of by-elections in the Northwest Province and KZN are pointers of a shift in South African politics. The takeover of the former ANC strongholds may signal winds of change sweeping through the country. The IFP last weekend won the by-elections against the ANC when it beat the governing party in Ward 13 of uMhlathuze Local Municipality. And this turn of events tips the balance of power sharply in favour of the IFP, marking the Inkatha's momentum in some of the KZN municipal elections post-2021. A similar victory was celebrated by the EFF in the Northwest Province, where the party won by 53%, taking control of Ward 3 in the Maquassi Hills Municipality. Now, Professor Andre Duvenhage, Professor of Research at the Northwest University in Potchefstroom, joins us now to discuss this further. Prof, good morning and thanks so much for your time here on Morning Live.
Good morning, Sakina. Nice talking to you.
So the question is, how much can we really read into by-election results?
Sakina, you can read some trends into it, but you cannot make absolute conclusions. But I would like to give you some context, some more comprehensive perspectives, and then we can assess the by-elections. My own take on the situation is that since about 2019, South Africa entered a phase of fundamental change. I think in some ways it was the start of a tipping point, and we can explain it against the backdrop of major leadership challenges facing the president and his group. We have seen escalating violence. We have seen the criminal justice system and many other state systems in serious decay. We have seen the ANC losing support. In 2004, they achieved 69%. In 2019, it was down to 57%. And in 2021, with the local elections on a national basis, it dropped to 47.5%. Now, taking into consideration all these factors and also the major socioeconomic challenges facing us, we can read in the by-elections a shift away from the ANC. Very strongly in KZN, specifically the northern parts of KZN, certain parts of Northwest, certain parts of Limpopo, and I think at this point in time, the ANC elite should be very concerned about the party achieving majorities on a national level. I don't think it's going to be a big margin, but they can end up under 50%, but also the two provinces, Gauteng and KZN, is probably going to be difficult and major challenges for the ANC. So in that sense, we are in a phase of change. We are into what I like to call tipping point politics, and it is playing out in terms of a reconfiguration of the political spectrum.
Prof, let's hone in on KZN and what's been happening there. So if we look at the recent by-elections, the ANC lost what was deemed as safe seats to the party. So this, of course, is not an anomaly because we have seen the IFP seemingly, becoming stronger all the while post the 2021 elections in KZN. If you look at all the by-elections, it does seem to make good reading for the IFP in particular in KZN. So what do we attribute that to?
Well, Sakina, that is why I contextualize since about 2019. But I think there's a number of developments in KZN. We have seen the party losing a lot of support in the local elections, especially in eThekwini, as is the case in the major metros. We have seen strong leadership coming from the IFP in many ways. And I think in a way, the poor governance in KZN, the levels of corruption in that area, and also the conflict and violence, because there's a lot of political assassinations. There was currently an assassination attempt on one of the leaders of the ANC, and it's happening on a regular basis. So this is the context, and at the moment, the context is benefiting the IFP, and there seemed to be a tendency since 2021, and that tendency is continuing.
So that, of course, is rather worrying as you make the example of the councillor who resigned after an assassination attempt, ANC councillor in one of the wards that was, of course, won by the IFP. This is, of course, a huge factor and one that we don't really want to see going into next year's elections.
Well, yes, but the problem is even bigger than political assassinations. I am very much concerned about the situation that the criminal law system in South Africa in toto is falling apart. We are looking at more and more organized crime continuing. It seems that there are links between politicians and organized crime, giving South Africa the characteristic of a mafia type of state. And this is not a new tendency. This is a well-established tendency. Now the big concern is what will happen if political elites will lose their power. We have seen in a country like Zimbabwe that ZANU-PF has lost at least 2 elections. Some people say it may be 3 national elections, and they keep their power. And the reason for that is that the regime is keeping the government in place. Now, if we take a province like KZN and we say there's a government change, there's a coalition between, let's say, the IFP and the DA, they are in some sort of an alliance there, they took control there, this may contribute to an escalation in conflict and violence, as we have seen currently in Tshwane and in Joburg and in some cases in Nelson Mandela Metropole. My take on the situation is that the country is becoming more and more unstable on many levels, and there's many reasons for that. And really, the criminal justice system is not up to it. We have seen about investigations like the Zondo Commission, not a lot coming from that. There was an investigation with regard to the political assassinations in KZN, not a lot coming from that. So my big concern is that order and stability is falling apart, and that the criminal justice system cannot deal with the situation in a proper way. This in an environment that is seemingly becoming more and more unstable, and I believe it to be the case in the build-up and probably even after the 2024 elections.
Prof Duvenhage, we're out of time, but I just quickly want us to touch on the Northwest as well. That by-election result in the Dr. Kenneth Kaunda district at Maquassi Hills Municipality. ANC dropping from a previous 64% to 47% there last week. And this is just one municipality. But again, in the Northwest, looking at the EFF and their showing there, is there a pattern or some sort of trend emerging pointing to a shift in that area as well?
Yes, although not within the total provincial context. We have seen the ANC doing well, for example, in Madibeng, but in the Kenneth Kaunda district municipality, of which Maquassi Hills is part of, it seems as if the EFF is making some inroads. It's also interesting that the Patriotic Alliance, a relative newcomer, is performing well. If we look at the general state of the province and we look at the state of affairs of local government in the province, there are major challenges and I believe that people will react against the ANC. We have seen that in the past in Clockway, JB Marks, Potchefstroom, where I am living, where at that point in time we had the official opposition, DA leading opposition under the leadership of Professor Annette Combrink. It seems as if that tendency is continuing. It's not going to happen in all parts of Northwest, but in certain parts, definitely.
Professor Duvenhage, thanks so much for your time. Professor Andre Duvenhage is a research professor at the Northwest University in Potchefstroom, discussing what he calls a tipping point in South African politics, just looking at some of the by-election results that we've seen recently.